It's been very interesting, of course, like it has been for everyone, but just the transition and figuring out how am I going to turn this around from being possibly a negative time to something that can be a blessing for me in my work and for my family too.
I don't know, like sometimes I think of like punks, you know, like kind of like cockroaches, but like in the sense that like we'll kind of just live in like shitty stuff and kind of just like get through it, you know, and be and like survive.
And my music, it's quite busy. But there are new ways to deal with that busyness and how you manage that business.
And I'm writing way more than I ever have before. So much so that I can't remember the chords off the top of my head of the song I just did like 3 days ago because I got another one I'm working on. This guitar I've had since 2000. I can't believe it's 20 years old. Wow, you're an oldie. Look at how good she looks. She's looking really good. Fingerprints and all. Sweat on the fret. Sweat on the fret. But yeah, this was actually the best thing I got on my first marriage. And that was an Indiana marriage. Came out here with me. My songwriting guitar, my woman in song. I just love it. She's good to me. So you better get ready. The ground is getting unsteady. You start to feel the shake, shake, shake. That's always followed by the earthquake. Then there will be the shock waves until there's nothing left to say. I play it all times, all 24 hours. I mean, I will play it. I worked on a song last night at between 2 and 4 a.m. So I just have to be a little delicate, but we are in a building that has triple pane windows and so forth because the planes fly overhead all times of day, in the morning, at night, at lunchtime, brunch time, you know, tea time. I do it all the time.
One of my goals is actually to completely break the usual stereotypes of the harp and show people that there's almost an unending variety of sounds that you can make. I mean, it just feels like I'm constantly trying something because I hear a sound in my mind. I think, how could I make that work? And then somehow I discover something new a new sound I can make on the harp, or a new kind of use of the overtones or of the pedals and the sounds that it can create. And so it's really a versatile instrument that can be like classical music. You can play jazz. There's harpists playing in rock bands. I mean, there's all kinds of, there's electric harps of many sizes. And so it's just playing musics that are not sticking to the tradition. The other kind of love that I realized through this journey was playing avant-garde music, free improv also, and then playing jazz music and finding more of my identity in these two areas of playing.
Reach out for me.
Reach out for me, girl, my baby. Reach out for me. People love to go out and be around people. That's great. You know, I'm not fully that type of person. Getting up on stage to me was always like, damn it, I have to go do this shit. You know, it was always, you know, some people love to go perform. No, it was like the bad side of the job for me, you know. I much preferred making the music, hiding out in my house making music. That's why I got into it, was the creative side. So live was always, there's a certain excitement and nervousness that happens to it, but it was never the driving force for music for me. So I'm trying to go look at it, you know, like, oh wait, this is kind of what I've always wanted. I was born to love and comfort you, my baby. I was born to love and comfort you, my baby, comfort you. I'll comfort you. For me, music in my life has always been like the color of my eyes. I can't change it, and it just is what it is. And you know, I've tried to do other things in my life, and I still do, like managing a hotel, running a record shop, enjoying other things in life, but music is always there, you know, a blessing and a thorn in my side all at the same time.
I guess like my gear also ties into the aesthetic of like just weird stuff too, you know, like the clearness of a Dan Armstrong bass doesn't help with the sound, or like, you know, I was just like, oh, clear, like that's so cool. I think also too, as a bass player, I was like heavily influenced by John Reese's guitar playing. It's kind of a weird thing, but just like sort of like finding like discordant chords that might not necessarily be pleasing to the ear, you know, like to the normal ear. Yeah, the inspiration is weird, but then again, it's like I remember sitting down last night and like starting to work on lyrics, and I'm like, geez, this is like easy. There's so much negative stuff to write about. You know, not that like I get it, like the music's aggressive and stuff that I work on lyrically. So it would be a negative topic, but there is a positive spin to it, I think. But like the sort of inspiration was just like, there it is, like that's not hard. And then I started like questioning myself, like this is almost like cliche, like what I'm saying in these lyrics seem like obvious. Like maybe I should like try to be more artsy or something and like hide it. You know, I don't know, it was weird.
DIY kind of methods of dealing with things, that all started with having nothing and building something out of nothing, you know, or something that other people did cost way too much, or was, you know, big major labels had all this money, and punk rockers and young people that had music that they wanted to put out had no way to do it. So we found a way, you know, to do it. It's no different. It's just a different set of rules and a different context, you know? So I don't think that's changed for me.
I've done a few, and I plan to do more of these kind of virtual concerts, just to give myself an outlet of playing. And while the audience isn't right in front of me, there is an audience, and it's amazing. And actually, there's a different audience than what I would have had in front of me. So hearing people just comment back and say, we're listening, thank you for the music, it brightened my day too, and that still getting some of that feeling that you get from a live performance when it's that interaction with the audience, and feeling like your music is doing something for them too, which is part of the reason I'm a musician, is for reaching other people with the emotions that music can convey.
Recently, I've really focused on the writing element. I love performing, but I absolutely love performing. Being on stage is like the best drug there is. When there's a full audience that's paying attention, because maybe if they're not paying attention or there's nobody there, then you're like, do they like me? But I love writing, and I love to just focus on that. And it would be, I love hearing people sing the lyrics I wrote. I love writing lyrics. I like doing melodies, and to me, it's so exciting because I'm like, I love hearing how they pull it out of them, and it's different than I would, but it's so cool. I'm like, I wrote that, and they're singing it, and they sound awesome. I'm a nerd that way. When I write with other people, I'm going in a different direction than I would if I was writing by myself, and I get outside the box, and I love it. It's fun, it's exciting, and maybe, just maybe, one of these peeps will make something famous, and I can sit back and get a paycheck.
Growing up and like looking at like Gravity Records, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make record covers out of cardboard and spray paint, you know, and like that's badass. And now it's like, you know, now you have like corporations like paying a lot of money to do shit like that. Where like back then it was just kind of like, what do I have? Let me use these elements and make something out of nothing. It's ridiculous. It costs a lot to make this, but then in order to pull it off, you know, pay a lot for this, and then the printing was done at Kinko's. They had red and blue and sometimes green options. So print red and then shift it and print blue, and then it looks like 3D. And so we were doing that. It's totally not creative, but like it's awesome, and it kind of reeks of San Diego, which is cool. My brain, I'm glad, is constantly trying to think of an alternative way to do something, kind of like doing it like a mental inventory and like seeing what might be able to be repurposed, because a lot of it people look at it as trash. And like, I mean, I think DIY ethics and like a lot of like punk ethics come from that. They come from trash, you know. And I think like we'll find something rad out of that, and then at some point the rest of the world will be like, oh shit, like there's something we can capitalize on, and then they'll ruin it, you know.
When I have the guitar in my hands, if like I'm at a place that I'm a little bit uncomfortable, and I just feel immediately like comfortable because I've got this thing. Not to be dramatic, music is the reason life is worth living for me, and it's my #1 love. All the hard times I've been through in my life, and we all go through hard times, I've been able to get through them through music. I feel like when I have a difficult experience, when I write about it, but not just when I write about it, but when I hit that emotion, when I'm really zoning in on exactly what I'm feeling in a way that's not cliche, in a way that's like, that is exactly how I feel right now. It's like I'm pulling it out of myself and setting it there on the shelf to be in a song forever and no longer in me and weighing me down. And that's what I live for. There's nothing like that moment.
Just realizing that when you're playing something written by a composer who's alive, you know, you are actually playing music that is speaking of your generation, or could be the generation before you, or the generation that's a little bit after you, but your generations, it's speaking of what is going on in the world now. What's going on, if it's music from your country, what's going on in your country now? That realization really propelled me into wanting to look more into what does it mean to play avant-garde music? What does it mean to play new music? Not that you can do what you want, you have to play what's there, of course, but there is just some other kind of energy and feeling in it.
I don't make commercial music. It just doesn't, you know, I think the best way to describe the music I do is underground, because it's so underground it's nearly dead. It's, you know, it's underground. People don't hear about it much. It's not commercial. It's dark. It's lonely. It's sad, and I'm totally fine with that. You know, it's like an old trench coat or something. Keeps you dry, but may not look that great. I've come to accept that's my guitar playing is as good as it is. My singing is as good as it's gonna get, and for me, it's about putting together all those things that create an emotion and and a picture and imagery for people. It's the combination of all those things, you know. So I don't try and be anything but what I am, and I don't, if I feel like something sounds too much like something else, I probably shy away from it and don't do it. I really don't try and have a style, although I probably do in some people's eyes, you know, what they can say whatever, you know, that's fine. But in my mind, you know, I don't sit there and ever try and be anything but what I am. And when I've tried to do things like work in some parameters like that, I fail miserably. You know, if I try, oh, I'm going to make a happy song, or I'm going to do this kind of thing, it just doesn't work out. So I've accepted that. Like, I never really search for anything but what's going on inside of me when I'm writing. And I try not to even search, because searching kind of just brings you no answers, you know? So it's really about allowing yourself to open up and take that time to create something.
I feel that like music is one of the only forms of communication that goes beyond language and beyond gender and beyond race, beyond whatever. It's the only way where you communicate. I mean, it has words in it, but, or without words, where you could communicate with energy and say in-depth, immense things to other human beings. Before this, I was already struggling with like the fact that people wouldn't go to live shows. They would watch it on YouTube, and it's like, I get it, but there's this sharing of energy that happens. There's something that happens from a live performance that I think you can't, you can't experience without being there. But also, like, you know, people have hit me up like, you should do like a live Zoom of the Locust, and I'm like, that just sounds stupid. Like, I don't know. It's not the same thing, because for me, and also going back to like punk and like punk ethics, it's like, there isn't like the band and the audience. So it's not like we're on this big festival stage, like, you know, however many feet away from, it's like, no, we're in your face, you are in our face. And this is like, we are this like one entity sharing this moment in time, you know, and that's something that I think you can't replicate that. You can't replicate it through a Zoom meeting or some kind of like, you know, Instagram Live. It just seems like a cheap version of the real thing.
Well, I love San Diego. I've had some really great times musically, great times. You know, San Diego is this beautiful outdoorsy place. So people are outdoors all day, they're surfing, they're doing activities, and then they don't go to see live music. I played a lot of shows where I'm like, well, why isn't anybody here? I'm like singing my heart out. But I mean, no woe is me, because I think all musicians have gone through that at some point. I've also played the really cool gigs where it's packed and like people are actually paying attention, and you're like, yes! And then you're like, okay, this is how it's gonna be every night. And then as soon as you go and do your next show, you're amped, and then you're like, 2 people that aren't even listening, oh, they work here. You know, it's like, it's a humbling life. You meet somebody in the music you know, community here in San Diego, and even if you don't know them, chances are you know the same person.
And then I met someone who suggested that we start a duo, and he, just working with him, and his music's very different from what I had ever really played before, and working with him, though, he kept telling me, just try improvising. Try playing this. And I kept saying, I don't improvise. No, I can't do that. If it's not on the page, I don't know if it's right, you know? And so I really attribute a lot of it to him just kind of pushing me a little bit to try playing different styles of music and doing different things. San
Diego's sure a small pond, and you can kind of reach people. You can reach people in that smaller pond. But besides that, culturally, the Latino culture of San Diego is so amazing and strong, and just mixing cultures, you know, I really am a fan of that, and it's something when I was away, I really missed that element, you know. Most of all my friends, I'm not Mexican at all, but I feel like, you know, it's like over half of my friends are of Mexican descent, you know, or Spanish descent, and so it's just part of how I grew up and what I'm familiar with and what I like. San Diego's as great with music. We have all different styles, but because it's small, they kind of mix together really easily where it's not so fractured. You know, there is a lot of different scenes going on in San Diego, and, you know, there's stuff I have no idea about that's new and fresh going on, but eventually it all kind of percolates to this area where you get to hear about things, you know. And we have some DJs and club owners and stuff that have been doing it for so long, and they really have their ear to the ground with a lot of what's going on. San Diego is a great place to live, and I've always said that, like, it's great to live here. It's tough to be in a band and survive here and really make a living because there's not a lot of opportunity, you know, like there would be in LA or New York or, you know, London or Paris or whatever, a lot more opportunity in Berlin or whatever. But it's a great place to create and a great place to be. But people always see it as like this little sea shanty town.
Ian MacKaye from Fugazi made this example about how San Diego is like in like this sort of like petri dish next to Los Angeles. Like we're just in the shadows, so we can kind of grow this thing. That is really, really accurate, you know. And I see that too. I see a lot of correlation between DC and San Diego with the politics, with it being next to a gigantic city. Crash Worship, like where the hell did that come from? Drive Like Jehu, where did that come from? You know, or even things like, you look at like Unbroken, that's a great example because, you know, they sounded like Slayer and they looked like Morrissey. Like no one did that before them. So these are things that I think were part of the roots of San Diego that most cities never really had, because they probably had a better platform where they're like, you can be in this kind of band, you can do this thing, go ahead and do it. These other bands did it, you can just follow suit. Here it's like, oh, we're all weird and you're into that and I'm into this, but like let's come together and make this one thing and figure out where it fits in the world later. Then it's like going and seeing shows under the 94 freeway in the sewer. Like, who does that? Someone came up with that idea and they figured it out, where like that's the trash that most people would be like, I'm not going to the sewer. But like I went down there and saw some of the craziest shit that you only would see like in a trauma movie or something, you know, and you're like, oh, that really does happen or did happen or could happen. And then it's like, well, what else can we do that's like that or beyond that, you know? And it's, I think a lot of people just like stop with their creativity because they're like, here's the level. So like San Diego, I feel like, you know, maybe it has its ups and downs, but for the most part, there's always someone that's kind of pushing that envelope to like go like, let's do this weird thing now, you know?
Well, my advice for musicians, I would have to say, because I'm not sure I can advise anybody else very well. But my advice for musicians and artists in general is just use this time to, you know, write songs, write lyrics, write a book, write a screenplay, draw a picture, paint a picture, and be real. You know, let it speak your truth. And truth is not always pretty. Truth is raw, truth is gritty, and truth is also beautiful art.
There's always challenges. Just because I speak mostly positive doesn't mean that my life is without challenges either. You know, there's always hardships and challenges and things that are coming at us. But to always be looking around at those things that are beautiful in your life. You know, so if there's a big stressor and you're really stressed out, well, sit down, take a deep breath, and look around at your life, at the beauty in it, because there's always good and there's always beauty also. So we don't have to stay focused on the challenges. We can look at other things too. And then when we look back at the challenges, sometimes we look with a fresh mind of, okay, how can we attack this or approach this, or how can we move through it or forward, you know?
I feel like maybe the best is to just be aware of things and try your best, and maybe not be too hard on yourself, and just just do the best you can, and at some point maybe it will be okay.
So I kind of wrote this thing based on some of these thoughts that we just spoke about, and it's called Fool's Game, and it goes something like, this. It takes a lot of knowledge to make a bow and arrow. It takes a lot of knowledge to make a net and wire. But the birds just fly higher in distress and despair. It takes a lot of knowledge to build a rod and reel. It takes a lot of knowledge to cast a hook and line. But the fish swim deeper into the depths in distress. It takes a lot of knowledge to build a house with wood. It takes a lot of knowledge to build a table to sit and debate. But the discussion climbs wild in distress. It takes a lot of knowledge to see inside and out, and it takes a lot of knowledge to reveal inside and out. But the fire is coming, and the wood will burn in despair. It takes a lot of knowledge to build traps and snares. It takes a lot of knowledge to build spears and nets. But in distress, the animals find refuge further into the forest. We search for knowledge to go further and climb higher. We search for knowledge to be stronger and go deeper. But we only fumble in distress and despair through our lives. We plot, we scheme in rhetoric and rumor. We pointlessly debate and argue to find agreement. But we toil in confusion and distress, all for the pursuit of knowledge. We all seek knowledge but can't find what we already know. We all condemn what we don't like, yet we can't condemn what we have that is wrong. The sun and the moon eclipse, and the streams and the oceans have no power. The seasons are broken, the insects and plants have lost their nature. This is the consequence of our quest for knowledge. The loud and the spineless advance, the quiet and the calm are cast aside, and pleasure is taken in argument. I do not wish to seek for knowledge. One does not need to explain. It's a fool's game.